Every house, every king, and every battle has its own truth. But there are stories older than crowns, darker than the night, and more dangerous than any blade. They were never written in books. They were whispered to fire, to the trees, and to the dead gods. And today, we dare to uncover one of them. Long ago, so long that even the meisters of Old Town can scarcely count the years, the world lay beneath a sky of endless night. Snow fell without ceasing, blanketing the forests and mountains until they groaned under its weight. The rivers froze in their beds, the seas stiffened with ice, and wolves hunted in packs so large they seemed like armies of their own. Men huddled in caves, clinging to fire as though it were life itself, for in truth, it was. This was the time of the long night, when the others came riding out of the cold. They were tall and terrible, pale as the moonlight, and their eyes burned blue with death's own fire. Wherever they passed, the living perished, and rose again in silence, their flesh as hard and cold as the winter ground. But not all was lost. South of the Frostfangs, among the broken remnants of the first men, there lived a boy named Bran. He was not yet a man grown, though his eyes were older than his years, and there were whispers that he had been touched by strange dreams since the day he first drew breath. Some said the old gods spoke to him in the rustling leaves, others that the children of the forest had marked him for their own purposes. Whatever the truth, it was Bran who would one day be called the Builder. At the time, he was only the son of a small clan lord who had been slain in the first snows of the long night. His people had fled south, hoping to find warmth and shelter, but even in the deep valleys, the cold crept after them. One night, as Bran huddled beside a dwindling fire, a whisper carried through the howling wind, a voice that was not quite human. "Stone cannot hold back the cold," it said, "but stone and sorcery together might." Bran woke with a start. Around him, his people slept uneasily, clutching each other for warmth. The fire was low, its last embers struggling to stay alive. He rose and stepped into the snow. Beyond the camp, the forest was still and vast, its trees tall as towers and dark as iron. And there, at the edge of his vision, stood a small figure cloaked in silver light. It was a child of the forest, no taller than a boy, with skin the color of leaves and eyes like golden lanterns. It regarded Bran without fear. "You hear us, little one," the child said softly. "You dream true." Bran could not speak. He had heard tales of the children, but few men had ever seen one. They were said to live deep within the haunted woods, keeping the old ways alive. "The others come," the child went on. "They will not stop, but there is a way to keep them from the realms of men." Bran's breath misted in the air. "Tell me how." The child tilted its head. "Build a wall of ice as tall as the sky, wide as a kingdom. Fill it with old power, and it will stand so long as the sun and moon endure." Bran looked up at the stars, shrouded by clouds. A wall of ice? The thought seemed madness, yet deep within, he felt the truth of it stirring like a fire in his chest. "How can a boy do such a thing?" he asked. "Not alone," said the child. "You must find the king who knows the wild and the singers who know the earth. Only together can you bind the cold beyond the world." Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure was gone, leaving only footprints that melted into the snow. Bran returned to the camp, but he did not sleep again. The whisper of the forest haunted him. When dawn came, though dawn was but a pale gray light, he gathered his people and spoke. "We cannot keep running," he told them. "We must make something that endures. a wall that the night cannot cross. Some laughed at him, others called him mad, but there were those who remembered the light in his eyes and the certainty in his voice, and they followed. They marched north once more, into the very heart of the storm. Days turned to weeks, and weeks into moons. Bran's small band dwindled, for the cold took its toll, yet he pressed on, driven by dreams that showed him shapes of stone and shining ice, of towers reaching the heavens. At last, they came to a vast plain where the earth itself seemed frozen in sorrow, a land so empty and cold, it felt like the edge of the world. There, at the foot of the mountains, a host awaited them, men and women, fierce and wild, wrapped in furs and bone. They called themselves the Free Folk, and their chieftain was Joramun, a warrior with hair black as raven's wings and a voice that thundered like the wind. "Who dares come north in the long night?" Joramun demanded. "Have you come to die, little lordling?" Bran met his gaze. "No, I have come to build." Joramun laughed, a great rolling sound. "Build? There is nothing here but snow and death." "Then I will build from snow and death," Bran said. Something in those words made the Wild King pause, and when the Child of the Forest appeared once more beside Bran, visible now to all, Joramun's laughter died upon his lips. "The night must be stopped," the child said simply. "Help him, King of the Free, or your people will be the first to fall." The wind howled around them. Snow swirled like a living thing. Joramun stared into the storm, and at last he nodded. "So be it. Let the boy build his wall, and I will help him, though gods know it will take more than men and magic to keep the dark away." And thus began the great work, the making of the wall. But even as the first stones were laid and the first ice blocks stacked, whispers of betrayal began to stir, and the cold beyond the mountains grew hungrier still. For the others were watching, and they did not intend to let the world survive. The days that followed were carved from ice and hardship. The men of Joramun's host were wary of Bran and his strange companions. They were hunters, raiders, and survivors, not builders. The notion of raising a wall taller than mountains seemed madness to them, but Joramun, true to his word, ordered his people to lend their strength. "Better madness than death," he said grimly. The first foundation was laid in silence. Great slabs of frozen earth were cut and stacked, then drenched with water that froze at once, sealing them together. The children of the forest worked beside men, whispering to the weirwoods that still dotted the northern hills. When the wind blew through the branches, the wood itself seemed to sing, deep, mournful tones that made the ice tremble and strengthen. Bran oversaw it all. He seemed tireless, though he seldom slept. When he did, his dreams were filled with shapes of frost and shadow, visions of the wall stretching endlessly into the sky, and of dark shapes writhing beyond it. At times he would wake with blood upon his hands, not his own, and the men whispered that sorcery guided him. One night, as the builders rested beside their fires, Bran climbed to a nearby ridge. From there, he could see the line of their work stretching east to west, only a small rise of ice for now, but already glimmering like a blade in the starlight. He was not alone for long. A soft crunch in the snow made him turn. Mage the singer approached, her pale hair glimmering silver in the moonlight. None knew from where she came. Some said she was part child of the forest, others that she was a woman who had once drowned and been called back by the old gods. Her voice could still the wind itself. "You push them hard, Bran," she said, her breath a mist. "Men are not made to build forever in the cold. If we rest, we die," Bran replied. The others draw closer each day. You can feel it too. Mage nodded. I feel their hunger in the snow. They are patient, but they do not forget. They watch this wall of yours, wondering if it will hold. Bran turned to her. It must hold. Tell me, Singer, what more can we do? Mage's gaze drifted to the sky. The ice is strong, but it is lifeless. If you would keep the dead from crossing, the wall must have a heart. Give it a soul, and it will stand as long as the world. A soul? Bran frowned. How can stone and ice have a soul? Mage smiled faintly. Ask the gods, or perhaps listen to them. She brushed her fingers across his forehead, and for a moment, Bran felt the forest stir within his mind. The rush of sap in trees, the whisper of roots beneath frozen earth, the slow breathing of the world itself. When he blinked, she was gone. The next day, word came from Joramun's scouts. A village to the east had been found in ruin. Its people vanished, its walls rimed with frost that never melted. The dead had passed that way. Bran called a council. We must hurry, he told them. The wall must rise faster. Joramun scowled. We've lost 30 men to cold already. If we drive harder, we'll lose 100 more. Then send word to the south, Bran said. Tell them what we do here. Tell them to send men, stonesmiths, masons, anyone who can lift and carry. The Wild King snorted. Southrons will not come north in this cursed age. They will, if they wish to live, Bran said. For when the others come, no wall of men will stop them. And so messengers rode out, vanishing into the snow. Weeks passed, and the wall grew. It climbed higher with every moon, 50 feet, then 100, then more. But with every height gained, more men fell. Frostbite claimed fingers and toes. Hunger hollowed their faces. Still, they worked. They were building not just for themselves, but for all who might come after. Yet shadows gathered. One evening, Bran found Joramun pacing beside the campfires, his hand upon the hilt of his sword. They whisper against you, the Wild King said. Some say this wall is cursed, that your dreams bring doom. Bran faced him steadily. Do you believe that? Joramun's dark eyes flickered. I believe you see things no man should see. And I believe you've bound the children's magic into this wall. If that magic turns on us, it won't, Bran said sharply. The wall is meant to protect. Protection has a cost, Joramun growled, and I would know what price you intend to pay. Before Bran could answer, the horn sounded. One blast, then another. A third, long and terrible, echoing across the plain. The dead had come. From the northern wastes, they emerged like a tide, pale figures moving soundlessly through the storm. Their eyes glowed blue. Their weapons glittered with frost. The air grew colder as they advanced, and the snow itself seemed to flee before them. Hold the line! Joramun roared, drawing his sword. The free folk rallied, forming ranks behind their king. Fire arrows lit the night as they loosed into the darkness, but many found no mark. The whites did not scream, did not falter. Bran stood upon a rise, the wall behind him gleaming half-built, and felt the world grow still. The wind ceased, even the firelight dimmed. Then he saw them, the others, riding pale horses, their armor clear as glass. The nearest raised a spear of ice and pointed it toward him. Bran's heart stopped. In that instant, he understood. They knew who he was. He raised his hands, whispering the old words Mage had taught him. The ground shuddered. Cracks split the frozen plain, and a low rumble echoed beneath their feet. Then the earth itself rose, a wave of ice surging upward, swallowing whites and men alike. When the light faded, silence returned. Where the battle had raged, a new wall of ice stood, sheer and glistening. It had risen as if the land itself had answered Bran's call. But the cost was terrible. Many of Joramun's warriors were gone, buried beneath the frozen wave. Joramun stared at the wall in awe and fury. "You've killed my men." "I saved us all," Bran said quietly. The Wild King turned away. "You've built your wall of death, builder. Let's see if it keeps the night at bay." Bran watched him go, his heart heavy. The wall stood higher than ever, but it was still not complete, and deep within the ice, faint and distant, he thought he heard voices, soft, cold whispers calling his name. The work was not done, and the darkness beyond was not yet defeated. The days after the battle were carved from silence. The snow that had risen to form the new wall had stilled everything beneath it, men, beasts, and even the wind itself. The survivors stood in a white wasteland, their breaths pluming like ghosts. The dead were gone, but so too were many of the living. Joramun's people burned what bodies they could find, whispering prayers to gods old and nameless. Others built cairns of ice for those the flames could not reach. Bran walked among them, wordless, his eyes fixed on the gleaming rampart that had grown from the frozen ground. It towered above them now, smooth and glassy, catching the pale light of the unseen sun. He had built part of the wall, but at a price. Joramun came to him at dusk, wrapped in a cloak of wolf pelts. His face was hard as the land around them. "Half my people lie under your ice," he said. "They died not by the swords of the dead, but by your hand." Bran did not flinch. "They died to save the rest. The others would have overrun us if the wall had not risen." The Wild King's eyes were dark with anger. "And if the ice takes us next, what power did you summon, builder? No man should command the earth itself." Bran turned his gaze northward, where the storm was gathering once more. "No man does. The power is older than any of us. It listens to those who remember how to speak to it." "And what do you think it heard, boy?" Joramun spat. "The plea of a hero, or the pride of one who would be a god?" Bran said nothing. The wind between them was sharp as glass. When Joramun left, he could still hear the man's words echoing like a curse. That night, Bran dreamed again. He stood upon the wall, though it was higher than mountains and stretched into forever. Below it writhed a sea of shadows, countless forms of ice and bone, their voices a low whisper of hate. Above him, a great tree grew from the wall's crown, its roots buried deep in the ice, its leaves glowing faintly red. From its heart came a voice, soft and yet older than the world. "You bind the cold with death," it said, "but death cannot be bound forever." Bran woke before dawn, his body stiff with frost. The fire in his tent had gone out, though he had banked it well before sleep. Outside, the wind howled low, carrying the faint sound of weeping, but there were no tears among his people. When he emerged, Mage the Singer stood waiting for him. She looked paler than before, her skin thin as parchment, her eyes shadowed with worry. "You have woken something, Bran," she said quietly. "The wall you built hungers." "Hungers?" "It took the warmth of the slain to rise," she murmured. "Now it craves more. The magic that gives it strength must be fed, or it will crack and fall." Bran stared up at the frozen expanse. He could almost feel it breathing beneath the cold. "Then we must feed it," he said. Mage's gaze was sad. "With what, builder? Fire cannot warm it. Wood cannot fill it. Only the living heart may bind such a wall." Her words haunted him. Still, the work went on. Messengers from the south had begun to return, bringing men of the first men's scattered kingdoms. They came gaunt and weary, driven north by the spreading cold. Bran welcomed them, set them to labor, and told them the purpose of their toil. "We are building for all who walk beneath the sun," he said. "If the wall falls, no land shall know spring again." And so they worked. Men cut great blocks of ice and hauled them into place with ropes of frozen hide. The children whispered in the weirwoods, sending tremors through the earth to fuse the ice together. Fire burned in iron braziers day and night, fed by the last of their wood. But each night, the temperature fell lower, the stars dimmed, and the northern horizon glowed faintly blue, as if lit from beneath by something cold and cruel. The dead had not been destroyed. They had only withdrawn. One morning, Bran stood upon the wall's unfinished summit, looking northward, when Mage came to him again. Her voice was trembling. "They gather beyond the frost fangs," she said. "Thousands. The long night returns in full. They will come before the wall is done." Bran clenched his fists. "Then we finish it before they arrive." "You cannot build faster than death," Mage whispered. "Even you." But Bran was deaf to reason. He worked without rest, his hands raw, his breath frozen in his beard. He began to speak strange words as he worked, old tongues, half remembered from dreams. The ice shifted at his command, shaping itself as if alive. Men grew afraid to meet his eyes. On the 30th day of that ceaseless labor, Joramun returned from a raid northward. He rode hard into the camp, his furs stiff with frost, his sword rimed with blood. "They are coming," he said, "and not as before. The others ride at their head. I saw their king shining like a fallen star." The camp fell silent. Bran looked once more upon the wall. It was immense now, nearly as tall as the peaks beyond, but still, it was not enough. The cold that approached would drown everything. That night, he went alone to the heart of the forest, where the last great weirwood stood. Its trunk was carved with faces so old, they had no eyes left, only deep sockets filled with ice. Bran knelt before it and spoke. "If the wall must have a soul," he said softly, "then let it be mine." The forest stirred. The air grew heavy, thick with whispers. From the roots came Mage, her eyes glowing faintly gold. "Are you certain?" she asked. "Once you give yourself to it, you will never walk the world of men again." Bran nodded. "If my life keeps the realm of men safe, then it is a small price." Mage's voice trembled. "Then the wall shall hold forever, but you will not see the sun again." She laid her hand upon his chest. Bran gasped as cold fire spread through his veins. The world seemed to blur, the trees grew vast, the snow brightened to blinding white. He felt himself sink down into the roots, into the stone, into the very bones of the earth. Far away on the plain, the wall began to glow. A deep blue light ran through its veins like living frost. The air crackled. Men fell to their knees in awe and fear. When dawn came, Mage stood before the gathered folk. Her voice was faint, yet clear. "The builder is gone," she said. "His life is bound to the wall. So long as it stands, the darkness will not pass." Joramun bowed his head. The people wept, though the tears froze upon their cheeks. And far above them, within the heart of the wall, Bran dreamed. He saw the dead army break against its face like waves upon a cliff. He saw spring return to the south and children born into light. But he also felt the endless cold pressing inward, century by century. He was the wall now, its guardian, its prisoner, and its soul. And deep within the ice, he waited, watching, as the long night finally began to break. For a time, the dawn that followed seemed like salvation. The snow softened, the wind gentled, and pale sunlight spilled over the peaks for the first time in many moons. Men fell to their knees before the wall, its towering face glittering like 1,000 frozen mirrors. The great work was complete, or so they believed. But not all hearts found peace in the morning. Joramun stood at the wall's base, gazing up at its immeasurable height. The Wild King had seen many wonders in his life, wars, storms, and sorceries whispered in the dark, but never this. He felt the cold radiating from it, endless and watchful, as though something vast and unseen peered back from within the ice. "Your builder's gift chills even the soul," he said quietly. Beside him, Mage the singer bowed her head. She looked frail now, her once bright eyes dimmed. "The wall was made to keep the dead out," she murmured, "but it binds the living too. Magic that great cannot be shaped without sacrifice." Joramun's hand tightened on his sword hilt. "Sacrifice," he echoed. "A fine word for loss. The boy is gone, and you've given us a prison of ice in his stead." Mage's gaze lifted toward the rising light. "He is not gone, King of the Free. He watches still. His spirit runs through every vein of this wall." Joramun spat into the snow. "Then may the gods have mercy on him. No man should be trapped forever between life and death." He turned away, his cloak flaring in the wind. Behind him, the people of the Free Folk were already breaking their camp, heading northward once more. They had no love for the southern lands, nor for walls of any kind. Mage remained until the last torch burned low. When she was alone, she pressed her palm against the ice. "Rest easy, Bran," she whispered. "Sleep while you can." But somewhere deep within the wall, Bran did not sleep. He dreamed. He saw all things through a veil of frost, the men who passed below, their fires flickering against his skin, the storms that tore at the wall's crown, the ghosts that drifted close, testing the power that bound them back. He felt every shift, every whisper of cold wind, every pulse of the strange life that now beat within the wall. And he felt something else, a crack, faint at first, no wider than a breath. But it was there, a flaw in the vast perfection of the ice. It was not the work of nature, nor of time. It was will. Far to the north, the others gathered again in the blinding wastes. The wall had driven them back, but not destroyed them. In their silent councils, they spoke no words, for their language was of wind and ice, yet their meaning was clear. The world of men had found its weapon. They would find theirs. Years passed. The snows receded from the south, and spring came again to the lands of men. The tales of the long night became songs, then legends, then half-forgotten whispers told beside hearths. Kingdoms rose from the ashes, and kings crowned themselves with steel and gold. But in the far north, the wall endured. Mage the singer lived longer than any mortal woman, though her hair turned white as snow and her voice grew soft as wind. When at last she felt her years catch up to her, she climbed the steps that wound to the wall's topmost height. There she stood, gazing out into the frozen wilderness. The world below was quiet. The wall gleamed beneath the pale sun, immense and unmoving. "You've done it," she murmured to the unseen builder. "The dead are gone. The realm is safe." The wind answered her, softly at first, then stronger, carrying a sound like distant crying. She frowned and laid her hand upon the ice. And there it was again, the faint vibration, the pulse deep within the frozen heart. Bran's presence, vast and silent, stirred beneath her touch. But beneath him was something else, a sound, a movement. The dead had not vanished. They had only been trapped. Mage closed her eyes. "He cannot hold them forever," she whispered. "Not alone." She began to sing. Her voice cracked with age. wove through the air like smoke. It was an ancient melody, older than the kingdoms of men, older even than the children of the forest. As she sang, her body grew still, her skin turning pale as marble. Her voice did not falter, even when she vanished entirely. By dawn, she was gone. Only a faint warmth lingered upon the ice, like the echo of a lullaby. Inside the wall, Bran felt the song flow into him. The burden grew lighter, the pain less sharp. Mage's spirit had joined his own, twined into the spell that bound the cold at bay. For a time, peace returned. Centuries passed. Men forgot. They called Bran the Builder a myth, a name whispered by old wives to frighten children. They built castles along the wall, Shadow Tower, East Watch, Castle Black, and the Night's Watch took their oaths. They swore to guard the realms of men, though none living could say what they truly guarded against. Yet sometimes, on nights when the aurora danced across the sky and the wind screamed like a living thing, the men atop the wall would feel it tremble beneath their boots. They would swear they heard a voice in the ice, a voice calling softly, like a dream half remembered. "Hold fast," it would whisper. "The night is not gone." Far beyond the wall, the frozen lands were not as empty as they seemed. Beneath the snows, deep in caverns no sun had touched since the world began. The others stirred. They did not age, nor forget. The wall's magic was strong, but its prison grew restless. And in the frozen silence between heartbeats, one of them spoke, a wordless murmur of intent that cracked the air like breaking glass. A thin line appeared along the wall's northern face. It was no more than a shadow at first, but slowly, over the course of years, it deepened. Bran felt it. In his endless dreaming, he reached toward the flaw, pouring his strength into the ice to heal it. But the crack widened, whispering back to him with voices that were once men, voices that should not have been heard again. He fought them with all the power he had left. The wall blazed blue, its light stretching across the night sky like a second dawn. The watchers below fell to their knees, praying to gods they no longer named. But the voices kept coming. In his heart, Bran knew what they were. Every life lost to build the wall, every soul bound in its making. They were part of him, and now they wanted release. He whispered their names into the cold, soothing them like a father with frightened children. The light dimmed, the tremors eased. For another age the wall held, and thus centuries turned again to myth. The kingdoms warred and fell, kings rose and died, dragons came and went, but the wall remained, a silent sentinel at the edge of the world. Its heart still beat with the spirit of the builder. Its voice still murmured to the restless dead, and in the coldest nights, when even fire seemed weak, it still whispered one unending promise to the dark beyond: "You shall not pass while I endure." And in the frozen wastes, the darkness waited, patient as time itself. 1,000 years had passed since Bran the Builder gave his soul to the ice. The wall had stood through wars and winters, through kings and kingdoms now long turned to dust. The first men had become the Northmen, ruled by Starks who claimed descent from the Builder himself. They spoke his name as a legend, not knowing the truth, that their forefathers still watched from within the wall, dreaming in endless frost. The Night's Watch guarded the wall now. Clad in black, they stood their silent vigil at the world's edge, men who had forsworn land, love, and name. They did not question why. It was enough to serve. Yet not all who took the black believed in the old tales. One such man was Ser Arik Snow, a bastard of Winterfell, sent to the wall for reasons whispered, but never spoken aloud. He was strong, clever, and proud, with a face that seemed carved from the same granite as the northern hills. But he had no love for myths. To him, the wall was stone and ice, nothing more, until the night it spoke to him. It was deep winter when it happened, and the wind screamed like dying men. The brothers of Castle Black huddled close to their fires, and even the ravens fell silent. Arik stood the watch upon the wall's crest, staring northward into a darkness that seemed to have no end. He had almost turned to go when he heard it, a faint whisper, like breath through a keyhole. "Do not let it break." Arik froze. He looked around, seeing no one. Only the vast, pale expanse of the wall stretched before him, glowing faintly in the moonlight. He pressed a gloved hand against it. The ice was hard as steel, yet he thought he felt something beneath it, a slow, deep pulse, as if the wall itself had a heartbeat. "Who's there?" he called. The wind answered him with silence, but the whisper came again, clearer this time. The crack widens, the cold returns. Arik stumbled back, his breath steaming in the air. He wanted to laugh, to call it a trick of the wind, but some part of him knew better. The sound had not come from the wind, it had come through the ice. That night, he dreamed of snow that bled and shadows that burned blue. When dawn came, he told no one. Men who heard voices on the wall were not long for their vows, but he began to watch the ice more closely, tracing every fissure, every ripple. There was one place near the center of the wall where the ice seemed to shimmer oddly, as though light moved within it. And there, he swore, he heard faint sounds, like the beating of distant drums. Weeks passed. The watch went about its duty. Yet strange things began to happen. A hunter vanished beyond the wall, leaving only a trail of broken snow. Ravens began to cry at night, all at once, then fall silent, as if choked. One morning, the brothers awoke to find the frozen gate rimed with frost from the inside, though no storm had come. "Bad omens," muttered the old maester. "The cold grows deeper than it should this season." Arik said nothing. He had begun to dream of a face, pale and ageless, carved in ice, its eyes watching him from the depths of the wall. A voice would follow, neither man nor woman's, whispering words he could not remember when he woke. He could feel the pull of it. One night, unable to bear it any longer, he took a torch and climbed to the place where the ice shimmered. The moon was full, the air sharp as glass. As he pressed his hand to the wall, the flame flickered and died. Yet within the ice, he saw movement. A figure stood beyond the frost, a man's shape, blurred and faint, with eyes like dying embers. "Who are you?" Arik breathed. The figure did not answer. Instead, it lifted its hand, mirroring his own, and for an instant he felt warmth, a heartbeat against his palm. Then came the voice, soft and sorrowful. "I am the wall. I am what was given to save you." Arik fell to his knees. "Bran the Builder," he whispered. "Yes," came the answer. "But I am breaking, Arik Snow. The dead stir again, and my strength wanes. The old songs fade, the vows weaken, the watch forgets." The air grew colder, and frost crept along the stones. "What must I do?" Arik asked. "Remember," the voice said. "Remember the purpose. Keep the fire burning. Do not let the wall fall, or all you love will perish." The vision faded. The ice was still again. When Arik returned to the castle, he found the others asleep, or pretending to be. He poured himself a cup of sour wine and sat before the fire until the embers died. In the days that followed, the dreams returned, stronger than before. Sometimes he saw Bran walking through endless halls of blue light, touching the ice as if to soothe it. Other times he saw the darkness beyond the wall, shapes moving in the storm, too many to count. He tried to warn his brothers. "The cold grows wrong," he told the Lord Commander. "The ice beneath us shifts. The wall, it breathes." The old commander looked at him with tired eyes. "You've been too long on the heights, Snow. The wind can play tricks." But Arik would not be silenced. He took to patrolling alone, walking the wall at night while the others slept. More than once, he found patches of ice newly cracked, though no storm had passed. Once he thought he saw a shadow move within the wall itself. Then came the night when the wall wept. The brothers woke to a sound like thunder. The ice dripped, not from melting, but from within, as though something trapped inside sought to escape. The torches flared blue, and the air reeked of frost. When it ended, a single fracture ran down the wall's northern face, long as a river. Arik stood before it, his heart pounding. The crack pulsed faintly, glowing from within like the vein of a dying fire. And in that glow, he saw the face again, the face of Bran, sorrowful and proud. "Too long," the voice whispered. "The song fades. You must renew it." "How?" Arik cried. "Tell me how." But the voice was gone. Only the cold remained. That night, the aurora danced above the wall, green, blue, and violet, shimmering like the ghosts of ancient fires. The men of the watch stared upward in awe, but Arik felt only dread. He understood what it meant. The wall was alive and dying. And somewhere beyond the northern wastes, the dead had begun to stir once more. Arik made a vow then, though no one heard it but the wind. He would find a way to save the wall, to renew its power, even if it cost him his life. For in his dreams, Bran's final words echoed without end. "The long night is not over, it only sleeps." Winter's ghost hung over the wall, and every gust of wind carried with it the taste of old death. The brothers of the Night's Watch went about their duty, pretending not to see the changes that crept upon the ice. But they felt it, the strange pulse beneath their boots, the soft hum that rose from the frozen heart of the wall at night. Some whispered prayers, others drank until dawn. Only Arik Snow walked the ramparts unafraid. He had begun to dream not just of Bran the Builder, but of the world as it had been when the wall was young, of children of the forest singing to the stones, of men and spirits working side by side beneath a sky of endless storm. He saw the making of the wall, saw the moment Bran had given himself to it, and he woke with his hands frozen stiff, as though he had touched that ancient magic himself. He could no longer pretend it was mere wind that spoke through the ice. One night, unable to resist the pull, he climbed alone to the very top of the wall. The moon was hidden, and the world below was a sea of shadows. He placed his palm upon the ice and whispered, "I am here." And the wall answered. The surface shimmered beneath his hand, and a faint blue light stirred within. A voice came, no louder than a breath. "You have heard me, Arik Snow. Few still can. The blood of the Builder runs thin, but it runs." Arik's heart hammered. "Tell me what you want of me." The voice sighed, ancient and weary. "I need a voice in the world of men. My strength fades, and the cold grows restless beyond the mountains. The songs that bind the wall have been forgotten. They must be sung again." "I am no singer," Arik said. "You are what remains," the voice replied. "Find the words, wake the fire. The wall will not hold forever." The light dimmed. The silence returned. Arik stood alone, shivering despite himself. He knew then that Bran's warning was no ghost story told to frighten boys. The wall's power was real and dying. He went first to the Meister, an old man half blind from years spent reading in the cold. "Meister Garrod," he said, "you have studied the histories. Tell me of the old songs." the ones sung when the wall was raised. The maester frowned. Old tales for old fools. What use have you for them? They were spells once, Arik said. Spells of binding. I need to know the words. Garrett stared at him for a long while. You speak as if you believe them. I do. The Meister sighed, pulling a cracked parchment from his shelves. This is what remains. Fragments only. The rest is lost to time. Arik unrolled the parchment. The writing was faded, half in runes no man living could read. Between the lines, faint and curling, were marks that looked almost like music. He traced the symbols with a gloved hand. These aren't letters. No, Garrett murmured. They are notes. The children of the forest did not write their magic. They sang it. That night, Arik sat before the hearth, studying the symbols by firelight. He tried to hum them softly to himself, but the sound felt strange, like words from a forgotten tongue. Still, something within him responded. When he sang, the flames leaned toward him, and a faint crackle of frost ran along the stones. He did not sleep that night. At dawn, he climbed again to the top of the wall. Snow fell thickly, muting the world in silence. He sang the first of the old songs, quiet, unsure at first, then louder as he went. The tune rose and fell like the wind through trees, haunting and old, and the wall answered. The ice glowed faintly blue, pulsing in rhythm with his voice. The cracks that had spread along its surface sealed themselves, melting and refreezing in perfect smoothness. For a moment, warmth returned to the air. Then the song ended. The silence that followed was deeper than before, and Arik could feel eyes upon him, cold, distant, and hateful. He turned northward and saw, far in the darkness, faint lights moving, blue flames scattered across the wastes. The dead were gathering. He ran to the Lord Commander's quarters, bursting through the door. "They're coming!" he cried. "The dead are marching again!" The commander, an old knight named Norin, stared at him in disbelief. "You speak madness." "I saw them," Arik insisted. "The wall itself showed me. We must send word to Winterfell." Norin slammed his fist upon the table. "Enough! You've been too long staring into the snow. You'll not spread fear among the men." But fear was already spreading. By dusk, ravens refused to fly, and the wind carried strange sounds, soft, rhythmic, like the clatter of distant bones. The brothers of the watch muttered that the long night was returning. That night, as the storm began to howl, Arik took a torch and climbed the wall one final time. He sang again, not the full song, for he did not know all the words, but enough that the ice began to hum beneath his feet. He felt Bran's presence beside him, faint but strong. "You cannot hold them alone," Arik said. "Tell me what more I must do." "The wall was built of ice and death," Bran's voice whispered through the frost. "To renew it, it must be fed again." Arik's throat tightened. "Fed? With life?" "With sacrifice," came the answer. "The wall demands what was once given." He understood then. Bran had bound his own life into the wall to make it strong. To mend it now, another must do the same. Below, horns sounded, 3 blasts, long and terrible. The dead had reached the outer fields. Arik looked down from the heights. He could see them through the snow, pale shapes moving in endless ranks, eyes blazing blue, their king at their head, mounted on a horse of ice. The wall shuddered under his gaze. He turned back to the ice and laid both hands upon it. "Then take me," he whispered. "If my life will hold the night, it is yours." The wall flared bright as lightning. The light spread outward in great arcs, sweeping over the field. The first ranks of the dead froze in place, shattering where they stood. The others fled back into the storm. Below, the watchmen fell to their knees. The wall glowed for an hour, then dimmed again. When the storm cleared, Auric Snow was gone. The brothers found only his cloak, frozen into the ice where he had stood. The crack upon the wall's face was sealed, smooth and unbroken. Some said he had fallen. Others whispered that he had joined the builder, his soul bound to the wall as its guardian. Years later, when the wall groaned in winter, the Black brothers would sometimes hear two voices whispering in the frost. One old and sorrowful, the other young and steady, speaking in unison. We stand, we endure. While we live, the night shall not pass. And though they feared the sound, they took heart from it too, for they knew then that even in the darkest winter, the wall still lived, and the watch was not alone. The storm that followed Auric Snow's sacrifice raged for 7 days and 7 nights. Winds screamed down from the frost fangs, driving snow so thick that even the torches of Castle Black vanished into white darkness. The wall burned with an eerie blue light that could be seen for leagues, a great frozen beacon cutting through the storm. When at last the skies cleared, the world lay silent and still. Not a single wight stirred north of the wall, and for a time, men believed the long night had been turned aside once more. But peace in the north is a fragile thing. Years passed. The brothers of the Night's Watch rebuilt what the storm had torn down. They sang of Auric Snow, calling him the second builder. The maester wrote that the wall had taken him into itself, as it had Bran of old, and thus the ice was stronger than ever. But those who stood the night watch upon its heights whispered of other things, sounds that came from within the wall, faint but growing louder as the seasons turned. It was said that 2 voices now whispered in the ice. One was calm and deep, the voice of Bran the Builder. The other was young and restless, like the crackling of new frost, the voice of Auric Snow. And sometimes, the 2 did not speak as one. In the 4th year of the reign of the Southern King who called himself Stormborn, a new brother came to the wall. His name was Cregan Pike, a Northman of wild birth, and though young, he bore the look of one who had seen too much. The Watch was always hungry for men, and none asked why he came. From the first, Cregan was drawn to the wall itself. He would stand upon its summit long after his watch was done, staring into the endless white, as though he expected something or someone to look back. One cold night, the Lord Commander found him there, unmoving, the wind tearing at his cloak. "You stare as if the wall might speak to you," the old man said. Cregan did not turn. "Perhaps it will." The commander gave a weary chuckle. "Aye, the wall speaks often enough, creaks, moans, and shivers, but it's the cold talking, not ghosts." "Then you do not believe the tales?" Cregan asked. "I've seen enough death to know what's real. The wall stands because it was well built, not because of old magic." Cregan said nothing. His eyes remained fixed upon the horizon. The commander sighed and left him there, shaking his head. But when dawn came and the first light touched the ice, Cregan thought he saw a shadow move within it. A tall figure, pale as the frost, walking slowly through the frozen depths. He told no one. That night, sleep would not come. He dreamed of snow falling upon endless plains, of men and women encased in ice, their eyes open and unblinking. He heard a voice calling his name, not from the wind, but from beneath it, deep and cold and familiar. "Cregan." He woke, gasping, to find the room colder than death. Frost had crept along the stone walls, and his breath misted in the air. The voice came again, this time from beyond the door. Come. He rose and followed. The corridors were empty, the torches guttering as he passed. He climbed the long stair that wound to the top of the wall, each step colder than the last. When he reached the summit, the night sky stretched before him, clear, vast, and cruelly bright. And there, in the ice, he saw them. Two shapes shimmered faintly within the wall's heart. One stood tall and still, his face stern and ageless. The other flickered like flame, young and fierce. Bran and Arik, the builders. Cregan fell to his knees. "What do you want of me?" The voices came together at first, a harmony of ice and wind. The wall weakens, the world below forgets its debt. Then they parted. Bran's voice was calm as still water. "We hold the darkness, but the cracks return. The songs are fading." Arik's voice was fire and fury. "The men of the South no longer honor their oaths. They fight each other while the true enemy waits. The wall cannot stand if men do not stand with it." Cregan bowed his head. "Tell me what I must do." Bran's answer was soft. "Remember the old ways. Keep the watch faithful. Teach them to fear what lies beyond." Arik's voice cut across his like the clash of steel. "No, the time for waiting is done. The wall is a cage. Its power should be used." A chill swept through Cregan's bones. "Used? For what?" "To strike first," Arik whispered, "to end the darkness before it wakes." Bran's voice grew stern. "That is not our purpose." "The world has changed," Arik replied. "Men forget the old truths. The cold gathers again. We cannot simply wait for doom." Their words crashed against each other like storm waves. The wall trembled. Light flickered within the ice, blue and white, colliding, twisting. Cregan cried out, clutching his head. "Stop! You'll tear it apart." At once the light dimmed. Bran's voice returned, faint but steady. "Forgive us. The wall holds, for now. But you must choose which path to follow." "What path?" Bran's voice faded. "The path of preservation." Arik's voice whispered close to his ear. "Or the path of fire." Then the silence fell. Cregan remained upon the wall until the first light of dawn touched the snow. When the others found him, he was pale and shivering, but his eyes burned with strange purpose. He told no one what he had seen, but from that day, he began to gather a small brotherhood within the Watch, men who still believed in the old powers, who remembered the songs whispered in the dark. He taught them the words he had heard in his dreams, fragments of the ancient language that bound the ice together. But he also began to question the oaths of the Watch itself. "What good is a wall if it only waits for death?" he would ask quietly. "Why guard against darkness when we might destroy it?" Some listened, others turned away. But Cregan's followers grew, calling themselves the True Brothers, sworn to the old blood of Bran and Arik both. They trained in silence, learned the forgotten songs, and waited for a sign. It came in midwinter. The ravens stopped flying, and the air filled with a deep hum that made the very stones tremble. When Cregan climbed to the top of the wall, he saw a glow upon the horizon, a faint, cold blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. "The others stir," whispered one of his brothers. Cregan looked down at the wall, feeling its pulse echo his own. "Then it is time." That night, he returned to the place where he had first seen the builders. He sang the old songs, his voice rising against the storm. The wall answered. The ice flared with light. Two shapes appeared within, the builders once more. But now they stood apart, their gazes locked in opposition. Bran's eyes were calm and sorrowful. Arik's burned like fire and snow. Cregan stood between them, trembling. "Tell me what I must do." Bran raised a hand. "Hold the wall. Keep the dead at bay." Arik's hand rose in answer. Use the wall. Burn the darkness before it rises. The light grew blinding, and as it swallowed him, Cregan realized the truth. The builders were no longer one mind. The wall itself was divided. When the light faded, he stood alone in the snow, his heart pounding, his fate bound to both voices. And far to the north, something vast began to wake beneath the ice. The winter that followed was unlike any the Night's Watch could remember. The snow came early and heavy, burying roads, villages, and forests alike. Even the sea froze hard enough for wolves to cross, and still the cold deepened. Men spoke of old portents, fires that would not burn, animals born without eyes, dreams filled with blue light. The wall groaned like a living thing. Cregan Pike watched it all in silence. Since that night upon the heights, he had been haunted by the voices of the builders, Bran, patient and sorrowful, and Arik, fierce and restless. Their counsel warred within him. By day, he led the watch as Bran would have wished, repairing fortifications, sending patrols, guarding the realms of men. But by night, he heard Arik's voice calling through the ice. The cold must be met with fire. And Cregan began to believe. He had grown up the son of a wildling woman who spoke of the long night as though it had never ended. She told him that the others were not gone, only sleeping beneath the snows, waiting for man's courage to fail. She had died when he was a boy, but her words remained. Now, as the cold worsened, he felt her warning breathing at his neck. At first, the changes were small. A brother vanished beyond the wall, and when his body was found, it was frozen harder than iron, his eyes wide with terror. The ravens grew silent. The weirwoods bled darker sap. But soon the signs became impossible to deny. A night came when the stars dimmed and the horizon glowed faintly blue. Those who stood watch upon the wall's summit said the air itself hummed. The ice beneath their feet pulsed with a light that was neither moon nor torch. "The wall remembers," whispered Cregan. He climbed alone to the highest parapet, his cloak snapping in the wind. The night was clear, the world below drowning in white. As he looked north, he saw them. Tiny flickers of movement far across the plain, gliding shapes that left no tracks. The dead were stirring again. The next morning, he went before the Lord Commander. "The others return," he said flatly. The commander, old and weary, rubbed his eyes. "You bring us tales every winter, Pike. The dead walk in every story told by frightened men. This is no tale." Cregan leaned forward, his breath steaming. "I have seen their light. I have heard the wall itself stir." "Enough." The commander's voice hardened. "The wall stands. It has stood for 8,000 years. It will stand long after we are dust. You would do better to guard it than to frighten boys with ghost stories." Cregan bowed stiffly and left without another word. But that night, he gathered the true brothers in the shadow of the armory. There were 19 of them now, men who had sworn themselves to his secret cause. "The Lord Commander will not act," he told them. "He clings to the comfort of old lies. But the cold does not sleep. It gathers beyond our sight, waiting for our weakness. The wall is our strength, but it is also our weapon." "What weapon?" one asked. "The wall is not merely stone and ice," Cregan said. "It is alive. It remembers every death given to make it, every soul bound within. Arik Snow and Bran the Builder still dwell in its heart. If we awaken that power, we can burn the cold before it comes." The men shifted uneasily. "Awaken? How?" "With fire." He showed them the old scrolls he had found in the Meister's library, fragments of runes and forgotten songs. The children of the forest had once sung these to awaken the earth itself. Now he meant to use them to rouse the wall. Bran would forbid this, one brother muttered. Bran built to endure, Cregan replied, but endurance is not victory. Arik understood that. He gave his life so men could live without fear. I will finish what he began. And so began the secret work. By day, they served as loyal brothers of the Watch. By night, they gathered in hidden chambers beneath the wall, carving strange sigils into the ice and lighting fires that burned blue instead of gold. The songs they sang were half forgotten, their words tasting of ash and winter. The wall began to hum. Its pulse grew stronger with each night's song. Cracks formed and sealed, ice twisted in strange shapes, and faint lights flickered deep within. Men sleeping above dreamed of voices and shadows. Some woke screaming, swearing they had seen faces staring from the frost. When the Lord Commander learned of it, he summoned Cregan at once. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "The wall shifts like a living thing. I've heard it cry in the night." Cregan met his gaze without fear. "It lives, my lord. It was built of blood and magic. Would you rather it sleep while the dead march?" "You play with powers you do not understand," the commander warned. "Cease this madness, or I will have you confined." Cregan's eyes glimmered like flint. "If I stop, the wall will fall." The next night, the storm came. It began as a whisper, then grew to a roar that shook the towers. The wall shuddered beneath the force of the wind. The true brothers gathered in their hidden hall, their torches flickering wildly. Cregan raised his voice over the howl of the storm. "Sing!" he cried. "Sing as the children sang in the dawn of the world." Their voices rose, strange and terrible, echoing through the frozen corridors. The ice blazed blue, the air filled with the sound of countless whispers, some of men, some not of men at all. Bran's voice broke through the din, calm yet filled with sorrow. "Cregan, you go too far." Arik's voice followed, fierce as flame. "No, he does what must be done." The wall trembled. The men fell to their knees as fissures spread through the ice, glowing like veins of fire. The ground itself seemed to burn cold. "Hold!" Cregan shouted, but the wall's voice drowned his own. Images flashed before his eyes. Bran, young and solemn, raising the first stone. Arik, offering his life to the storm. The endless ranks of the dead pressing against the ice. He saw it all in an instant, and in that instant, he understood. The wall was not only a barrier, it was a balance. Life and death, warmth and cold, fire and ice, each bound to the other. He had broken that balance. The light within the wall flared white, blinding. Then came silence. When Cregan woke, he was lying on the snow. The storm had passed. The wall stood unchanged, or so it seemed, but the air was different, too still, too heavy. He rose, dizzy, and pressed a hand to the ice. It was warm beneath his palm. He knew then what he had done. The wall still stood, but its heart was no longer pure frost. Fire burned within it now, trapped and hungry. The songs of Bran and Arik were gone, replaced by something new, something restless. The true brothers who had sung with him were dead, their bodies frozen where they fell. The Lord Commander was nowhere to be found. Only Cregan remained. Above him, the wall's surface shimmered faintly red, like the last embers of a dying hearth, and from deep within, a single voice rose, not Bran's, not Arik's, but his own, echoing through the ice. "You sought to save us," it whispered. "Now you must keep what you have awoken." Cregan sank to his knees, the truth settling upon him like snow. The wall would never be the same. It was no longer a creation of pure ice, nor of pure death. It was something between, a living flame imprisoned in frost, bound by his own folly. And far to the north, Beneath the frozen seas, the others felt the change. They turned their pale faces southward, and for the first time in 1,000 years, they smiled. The red light that pulsed within the wall faded slowly, but it never vanished. It glowed faintly beneath the ice, as though a fire had been buried alive. The brothers of the Night's Watch dared not speak of it openly, yet every man who stood guard at night could feel its presence. The wall, once cold as death, now breathed warmth from its heart, a strange heat that did not comfort but unsettled the soul. Cregan Pike was no longer the man he had been. Since that night of flame and song, his eyes had changed. One remained the gray of winter skies, the other burned faintly with an ember's light. He spoke seldom, and when he did, men listened with unease. They said the wall itself whispered to him, that he could hear it sighing deep in the ice. He became the new Lord Commander, though none could say exactly how. The old commander's body was never found, and those who had questioned Cregan's rituals disappeared one by one. When word reached Winterfell, no lord wished to challenge the wall's will. It was enough that it still stood, but beyond it, the cold grew bold again. Travelers from the Gift spoke of strange shadows in the forest, of blue fires burning in the distance. The wildlings told of villages vanishing overnight, their people taken by pale riders who left no tracks. And every dawn, the red glow in the wall brightened, as though it fed upon these losses. Cregan felt it, every death, every scream swallowed by the snow. He dreamed of them nightly. The wall showed him visions. Bran the Builder, bound in ice, his face calm but sorrowful. Arc's snow, burning within the frost, his fury eternal. They circled him like twin stars, one cold, one hot, each whispering their own truth. "You have broken the balance," Bran would say. "You have freed it," Arc would counter. In time, Cregan ceased to sleep at all. On the 15th winter after the storm, a wildling host appeared upon the northern plains, ragged, starving, their leader a gaunt woman with hair white as snow. She called herself Sarah of the Shadows and claimed she had seen the White Walkers with her own eyes. Her people had fled south, seeking refuge at the wall. Cregan met them at the gate. "Do you bring peace or war?" he asked. "Neither," Sarah said. "We bring warning. The dead walk again. They have a new master, one who burns with fire instead of ice." The words struck him like a blow. "Fire?" She nodded. "They are changing. The old cold no longer binds them. Something has stirred them from their sleep." Cregan turned toward the wall. Its faint red light shimmered through the mist, pulsing like a great slow heart. He knew at once what she meant. The fire he had awakened had not stayed contained. It had reached beyond the wall, into the land of the dead, twisting what it touched. The balance was indeed broken. He led Sarah and her followers inside, granting them food and warmth. But that night, he climbed to the highest tower and placed his hand upon the ice. "Bran," he whispered, "what have I done?" A faint voice answered, weak as a sigh. "You have given them what they lacked, life's spark. The cold and fire now walk as one." "Then I must undo it." "There is no undoing," Bran murmured. "Only choice. Fire consumes, cold endures. Which will you serve?" Cregan lowered his head. "I will serve life." "Then remember," Bran said, "life must sometimes burn." The nights grew darker after that. Snowstorms rose without wind, and the sky itself seemed to dim. Ravens no longer came from the south. Men began to vanish in the tunnels beneath the wall. Some said they heard voices calling their names before they disappeared. Others swore they saw hands of flame reaching through the ice. Cregan gathered his captains. "The wall feeds upon us," he told them. "Each death strengthens it. I have made a prison that eats its keepers." One of the men, a grizzled ranger named Talon, shook his head. "You speak madness, Lord Commander. The wall protects us." "Does it?" Cregan asked quietly. "Or does it merely keep us here to feed its hunger?" The room fell silent. None dared answer. That night, Sarah came to him again. "My people are afraid," she said. "The wall glows brighter with every passing day. They say it listens when we sleep." "It does," Cregan said. "And it dreams terrible dreams." She looked at him strangely. "Then why stay here? Tear it down. Let the world breathe again." Cregan almost laughed. "Tear down the wall. You might as well tear down the sky. It would fall upon us all." But her words lingered. When he closed his eyes, he saw the wall as it truly was. A vast wound in the world, glowing red in the dark, bound together by pain. Its whispers had grown louder, more insistent. At times, he thought he could hear the builders themselves arguing within it. Bran's steady calm against Arik's defiance, ice against fire, neither yielding. And beneath their quarrel, another voice, something deeper, older, neither human nor god, began to stir. It came first as a hum, then as a roar that only he could hear. It filled his skull with visions, flames crawling beneath the ice, black rivers of shadow running through the snow, a face of pure white watching from the northern dark. The wall was not alone. Something vast pressed against it from the far side, testing its strength, drawn by the warmth it now bled. The dead were no longer the greatest danger. The wall had awakened something older. On the final night of that terrible winter, the sky burned crimson. The brothers gathered upon the wall's top and saw the horizon blaze with blue and red fire intertwined. Out of the storm marched the dead, not cold and still as before, but aflame with ghostly heat, their eyes a blinding violet. "They burn!" cried Sarah. "Gods help us, they burn!" Cregan stood silent, his heart heavy. He knew what he saw. The dead were no longer bound to the cold. They were alive with the very fire he had awoken. His mistake had given them strength. The first wave struck the wall before dawn. The heat of them melted the lower ice, and steam rose in thick clouds. Arrows turned to ash before they reached their mark. The brothers fought bravely, but every slain wight rose again, burning brighter than before. Cregan climbed to the wall's summit, where the red light blazed strongest. He laid both hands upon the ice and shouted to the builders within, "You see what I have done. Tell me how to end it." Bran's voice came faintly. "To end what you began, you must finish it. Give the wall what it truly seeks." "What does it seek?" "Peace," whispered Arik, his tone heavy with grief. "And peace demands silence." Cregan understood. He turned to Sarah, who had followed him up the stair, her hair whipping in the wind. "Go south," he told her. "Tell them the wall will hold, but not for long." "What will you do?" "What I must." Before she could stop him, he began to sing. The old songs of the first men, of Bran's making and Arik's sacrifice. His voice rose over the storm, low and powerful. The wall glowed brighter and brighter until the red light became pure white. The burning dead froze mid-charge, their flames snuffed out like candles in snow. Then, in one final burst of light, the wall went silent. When the smoke cleared, the wall still stood, but its glow was gone. It was gray now, lifeless, cold once more. No warmth, no whisper, no hum, only silence. Cregan Pike was gone, his name already turning to legend. In time, the tale would be told that he had restored the wall to its first strength, sealing the dark away forever. Yet some who had seen that final light swore they heard not one voice in the storm, but three, Ice, fire, and something else, older and deeper, rising together before vanishing into the snow. And beyond the farthest north, in a place no map dared mark, a faint red glow flickered beneath the ice, waiting, dreaming, alive. Years passed, and the tale of Cregan Pike faded into legend, as all tales do when retold by those who no longer remember the taste of fear. The Night's Watch endured, though it was a hollow shell of what it once had been. Men still took the black, still spoke the oaths beside the heart tree, but they did so out of duty, not faith. None truly believed the wall was more than stone and ice, yet the wall was neither. It stood vast and silent, its shadow stretching across the frozen land like the mark of a god's hand. The light that had once burned within it was gone, or so men thought. Beneath its surface, deep in the oldest ice, something still stirred. The faintest pulse, slow and patient, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The wall dreamed. It dreamed of Bran the Builder, of Arik Snow, of Cregan Pike, men who had given their lives to its making and remaking. It dreamed of their voices, of fire and frost locked in endless song. And it dreamed of the power that had passed through them all, ancient, tireless, waiting. When the next great winter came, it came without warning. The rivers froze in a single night. The forests fell silent. The sky turned the color of old iron, and snow fell so thick that it smothered towns before dawn. In the castle nearest the sea, a maester named Talon Rivers kept his records by lamplight, writing of the unnatural cold. He had studied the old tales, though most mocked them as children's fancies. He knew the history of the wall, the songs of Bran, the sacrifice of Arik, the rise and fall of Cregan Pike, and he knew the warnings written in forgotten tongues. When the wall sleeps, the world will dream again. Now, as the sea froze and the ravens fell dead upon his windowsill, he wondered if that time had come. He left for the wall within the fortnight, traveling through storm and shadow. He found the castles half empty, the watch dwindled to a few dozen men. They welcomed him, if only for the warmth of his fire and the promise of his parchment. It was there that he met Ronan Stark, a young ranger of the north, kin to Winterfell by blood and bearing the same steady eyes as the lords before him. "The wall endures," Ronan said proudly when Talon arrived. "It always will." Talon only nodded. "All things endure until they wake." Ronan frowned. "You speak as if it sleeps." "It does," Talon replied softly. "And I think it dreams of us." The nights grew worse. Strange lights flickered upon the horizon, red and blue mingling like blood and frost. The wall began to groan again, its ancient ice cracking in long, deep sighs. The watch called it the winter's voice, but Talon knew better. He spent his days in the old archives, poring over crumbling records left by dead maesters. In one, written in the spidery hand of Maester Garrod, who had served during Cregan's time, he found a single line that chilled him to the bone. The wall was made not to hold back death, but to hold back what came before death. That night, Talon told Ronan what he had read. "The wall is not only a barrier," he said, "it is a lock, but no lock lasts forever." Ronan's jaw tightened. "If you speak truth, then what lies behind it?" Talon hesitated. "Not the dead, nor the others. Something older. The cold is only its shadow." 3 days later, the wall bled. It began as a thin trickle of water, pink and steaming in the snow. Then came the cracks, long, jagged lines that ran from crown to base, pulsing faintly red. The brothers panicked. Some fled south, others prayed to gods who had long since gone silent. Ronan and Talon climbed to the top. From there, they saw it. light pulsing deep within the wall, like the glow of a forge hidden beneath ice. The same light that had burned in Cregan's time, now awake again. "By the gods," Ronan whispered. "It's alive." Talon shook his head. "No, it's waking." The air thickened with warmth. Frost melted from the stones, running like sweat. From the northern plain, a sound rose, a deep, endless hum, neither wind nor beast. Then the light flared. The world shook. From the base of the wall came a fissure wide enough to swallow a man. Steam hissed from it, carrying the stench of ash. And beneath the roar, Talon heard voices, not one but many, tangled together, ancient and terrible. He fell to his knees. "They're speaking." Ronan drew his sword. "Who?" "The Builders," Talon breathed. "Bran, Eric, Cregan. They're fighting still." The voices clashed, one cold as moonlight, one burning like flame, one heavy with sorrow. Their quarrel echoed through the ice. "Endure," said the first. "Strike," said the second. "Balance," said the third. The wall's glow deepened. The fissure widened. Something vast stirred within. Ronan grabbed Talon's arm. "We must warn the South." "It's too late," Talon whispered. "The wall has chosen." And indeed, it had. From the heart of the ice came a blast of light so bright it turned night to day. The wind roared southward, carrying with it a storm of flame and frost intertwined. The watch's towers shattered. The forests burned and froze at once. For a heartbeat, all of Westeros trembled. Then, silence. When Ronan opened his eyes, the wall was gone. In its place stretched a vast valley of glass, smooth, white, and gleaming under the pale sun. Steam rose from its cracks. There was no ice, no snow, no dead, only stillness. Talon lay nearby, half buried in frost. His last breath left his lips as a whisper. "The lock is broken, and what was bound walks free." Ronan looked north. Far on the horizon, where the wastes had once begun, a figure moved, tall, pale, and crowned with fire that burned blue as the coldest flame. It walked alone, leaving no mark upon the ground. The new thing that had slept beneath the wall had awakened. And as Ronan stared, frozen with awe and dread, the creature turned its gaze upon him. Its eyes were not blue like the others, nor red like dragons. They were both, swirling together, fire within frost. It raised one hand. The air shimmered. A voice filled his mind, deep and ageless. "We are the balance undone. The wall held us, and men fed us. Now the wall is no more. The world is ours to remember." Then the figure vanished into the storm. Ronan stood alone on the glass plain, surrounded by silence. Behind him, the realm of men waited, still unaware of what the breaking of the wall truly meant. He turned south and began to walk, his heart heavy, his steps slow. For he knew what none else yet knew, that the age of ice and fire had ended, and something far older, far more terrible, had taken its place. And behind him, the wind whispered through the glass, carrying the voices of three who had become one. "We endure, we burn, we rise." The world did not end that day, though it came close. For a time, men south of the wall knew only storms. The skies bled ash, the rivers turned black with soot, and snow fell that burned when it touched the skin. In Winterfell, they called it the Red Frost, and it lasted a year and a day. Crops failed, beasts perished, and even the old gods of the weirwoods seemed to weep sap as dark as blood. When the storms passed at last, the sky cleared, but not as before. The northern horizon shimmered with a strange light, half blue, half red, dancing like fire upon snow. The wall was gone. Its ruins melted into a vast field of white glass that stretched farther than sight could follow. The songs of men named it the Silent Plain, No one dared go near it. Ronan Stark had been the only man to stand upon that plain and live. He wandered the frozen lands for weeks after the breaking, guided only by instinct and the faint whispers that lingered in the wind. He ate what he could catch, slept beneath dead trees, and dreamed of fire and ice twined like serpents. When at last he reached the foothills of the Gift, he was half mad with hunger and cold. Farmers found him collapsed beside a frozen stream, his eyes glazed with frost. They carried him to the nearest village, thinking him a ghost. When he woke, he spoke little, but the people saw the change in him, the faint glow beneath his skin, the way frost melted wherever he walked. Rumor spread fast. Some said he had walked through death itself. Others said the wall's power had passed into him. Ronan said nothing. At night he would sit alone, staring northward, listening to the silence. Sometimes he thought he heard voices within it, distant, familiar, calling him by name. Ronan Stark, keeper of the last flame. He tried to forget, but the dreams returned, always the same. A figure walking across the plain of glass, tall and crowned in frostfire, neither dead nor alive. Its eyes were twin storms, swirling with light. It would stop and turn toward him, and he would wake screaming, the air around him steaming from sudden heat. That spring, if such a word still had meaning, a raven came to Winterfell. Its wings were rimed with frost, its claws bloodied, its eyes unnaturally bright. The maester who took the letter from its leg died before he could read it aloud, his body frozen stiff where he stood. The letter was addressed to the Lord of Winterfell and sealed with wax the color of ash. The writing was fine and flowing, yet no man could say what hand had penned it. To the blood of the builder, keeper of ice and flame, the wall is gone, but its heart endures. What was bound has risen, what was lost remembers. The balance breaks anew. Come north and see what your forefathers made. Come before the cold learns to burn. Signed only with the mark of 3 interlocked circles, one of ice, one of fire, one of shadow. Ronan knew the mark at once. He had seen it in his dreams, carved into the glass plane. Against all counsel, he gathered a small company, rangers, maesters, and wildling guides, and set out for the ruins. The journey north was a slow descent into silence. Villages were empty, their hearths long cold. Not a bird sang, not a wolf howled. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. After a month's travel, they reached the edge of the silent plain. There the snow ended abruptly, giving way to smooth white glass that stretched to the horizon. It shimmered faintly beneath the pale sun, cold and perfect. "7 save us," whispered one of the men. "It's like walking on the bones of gods." Ronan dismounted, stepping onto the glass. It did not crack or shift beneath his boots. The air was warmer here, thick with a strange scent like metal and smoke. He knelt, pressing a gloved hand to the surface, and felt it pulse. It was not dead. The maester with them began to weep. The stories were true. The wall lived, and now it dreams beneath us. Ronan closed his eyes. No, it wakes. They traveled 3 days across the plain. At night, they saw faint lights beneath their feet, shapes moving like shadows under ice. Once, one of the wildlings vanished while standing watch. In his place, they found only a circle of melted glass, warm to the touch. On the 4th day, they reached the heart of the plain. There stood a great fissure, wide as a castle gate, plunging into darkness. Steam rose from it, curling like breath. The air hummed with power. Ronan knew this place from his dreams. He ordered the others to stay back and step to the edge. "Bran," he called softly. "Arik, Cregan, if you yet remain, answer me." For a moment, only the wind replied. Then came the whisper, faint, distant, carried from far below. "You should not have come." "Who speaks?" Ronan demanded. The voice seemed to echo from every direction at once. "We are what remains, the builders, the bound, the broken. You stand upon our prison. Then you still live. Not as men do. We are the dream of the wall, and the wall is the dream of the world. But it falters." Ronan's heart pounded. What stirs beneath? A pause, then 3 voices together, one deep and calm, one burning, one heavy with sorrow. "That which was before us all." The fissure glowed, faint at first, then brighter, until the glass around it turned red hot. The men behind Ronan cried out, stumbling backward. From the light rose a figure, taller than any man, its body forged of molten ice, its face a mask of blinding flame. Ronan fell to his knees. "What are you?" The creature's voice was like thunder on snow. "The wall was my chain. You broke it. I am the memory of what the world feared first." The air grew unbearable. The creature lifted its hand and the sky darkened. Fire and ice were never enemies. They were pieces of me. You are the children of my dividing. Ronan struggled to stand. "Then I will end you." The creature laughed, a sound like the shattering of glaciers. "End me? You carry my mark already. Did you think the wall's power left you untouched?" Flames erupted along Ronan's arm where he had touched the ice years ago. The mark of 3 circles appeared, glowing through the skin. He screamed, but the fire did not consume. It fused, spreading cold and heat alike through his veins. "You are my vessel," the voice said. "Through you, I will remember what it is to live." The world spun. The light swallowed him whole. When it cleared, Ronan stood alone upon the glass plain. The fissure had sealed. The others were gone, melted into the ice. The sky above shimmered with both flame and frost, merging in strange harmony. He felt the pulse beneath his feet, steady, strong, alive. Inside him, 2 voices whispered, one ancient and calm, the other fierce and burning. And between them, something deeper, older, waiting. He looked north, where the light burned brightest. "So it begins again," he murmured. And with that, Ronan Stark, last of the watch, heir to the builder's blood, walked into the light, toward the place where the wall once stood, and where something greater than gods had begun to stir once more. The silent plain trembled behind him. The glass cracked, webbing outward like frozen lightning, and far beneath, the wall's heart, alive again, beat in time with his own. For many generations after Ronan Stark vanished into the shimmer of the silent plain, no living soul dared set foot north of the broken wall. The land itself had turned strange. The air hung heavy with whispers, and the very snow seemed alive, stirring in slow spirals as though breathing. Hunters who ventured near the plain spoke of seeing distant shapes moving beneath the glass, shadows that walked upright but left no reflection when the sun touched them. The maesters in Old Town called it nonsense born of fear. They said the wall had melted and refrozen, and that gases trapped beneath the ice gave the illusion of motion. But those who lived near the gift knew better. They heard the low hum that sometimes rolled across the night, deep and steady as a heartbeat. They felt the tremor in the earth, and some swore that, on clear nights, if one listened closely, the wall could still be heard whispering. Centuries passed. The 7 kingdoms rose and fell in endless rhythm. Kings crowned, thrones shattered, blood spilled upon the same stones where other blood had dried before. Men forgot the true purpose of the wall. Songs turned to myth, myth to fable, and fable to dust. But in Winterfell, the old words lingered. The Starks of that age were not kings, nor even lords of great renown, but keepers of a dwindling northern realm where winter held longer than anywhere else. The wolves still howled in their god's wood, and the words "winter is coming" were carved above their hall. Yet even they no longer knew why their house carried the blood of the builder, until the night the red star fell. It came blazing across the heavens, brighter than the moon, trailing a mane of fire that split the sky from east to west. When it vanished beyond the horizon, a dull thunder rolled across the land, and the north trembled as though the world itself drew breath. 3 days later, a rider came to Winterfell, a girl from the hills, frostbitten and pale, her eyes wide with terror. She brought news that the silent plain had cracked open. The Lord of Winterfell then was Edric Stark, a young man yet untested by war, but wise beyond his years. He gathered his council and listened as the hill girl spoke. "There was light under the ice," she said, "red and blue together, like a fire frozen. It spread across the plain, and the ground began to sing." The maester scoffed. "The woman speaks of fevered dreams. The plain is barren and lifeless." But Edric frowned. "Barren things do not sing." That night, he went to the crypts beneath Winterfell, to the statue of Bran the Builder that stood in the oldest hall. Dust lay thick upon its shoulders, but the stone eyes still gazed north. "Tell me, forefather," he whispered, "what did you build that will not die?" The air in the crypt grew colder. For an instant, Edric thought he heard an echoing voice, faint as the shifting of stones. "What was built endures. What endures must awaken." He started back, heart pounding. When he looked again, the statue was still, but he knew what he must do. By morning, he had gathered 50 men, rangers, builders, and old soldiers of the Watch who still remembered their vows. They rode north through snow and shadow, passing the ruins of castles long abandoned. Eastwatch, where the sea had frozen solid, the Shadow Tower, half buried in ice, and at last the place where the wall had once stood. There, the world opened into silence. The silent plain stretched before them, miles of white glass, cracked and gleaming beneath the pale sun. The fissure the girl had spoken of was visible even from afar, running straight as a sword stroke across the horizon. Steam curled from its depths, tinted with faint red light. Edric dismounted and walked forward alone. The glass was warm beneath his boots. He knelt and laid a gloved hand upon it. "Bran," he whispered, though he knew not why, "if your blood yet runs in mine, guide me now." The surface pulsed faintly, as if in answer. "Gods," murmured one of the rangers. "It lives." They camped upon the edge of the fissure that night, unwilling to cross it. The wind blew strange, neither cold nor warm, but alive. The men did not sleep. They heard voices in the dark, fragments of words carried on the air. Edric lay awake until dawn, when he saw the light change. The glass beneath his bedroll shimmered, the red deepening to gold, and then, from somewhere far below, he heard a sound like a single heartbeat. The ground cracked. The men shouted as the fissure widened, spilling steam that stung the lungs. Edric rose, sword drawn, though against what he did not know. Shapes moved within the smoke, tall, indistinct, their outlines wavering between flesh and flame. A voice spoke, not aloud, but inside every mind. "You have come, blood of the Builder. The wall you seek is no more, yet still we stand. We wait for the world to choose." Edric's hand trembled. "Who speaks?" "We are what remains of balance, ice and fire, life and death, the dream that holds the world together." The builders lie within us, and we within them, but the seal weakens. What seal? The one that binds what sleeps beneath. Edric felt the words like blows. The fissure beneath him throbbed with light. A wind rose from below, smelling of ashes and snow. You speak of the creature that was freed when the wall fell. Freed, yet not whole. It stirs. Soon it will wake, and its first breath will unmake the seasons. The light flared, blinding. When it faded, one of the shapes stood before him, a woman of flame and frost, her eyes the color of dawn. "You are of the blood that built us," she said. "Only your line may mend what was broken." Edric swallowed hard. "Then tell me how." She raised her hand. "Blood built the wall. Blood must rebuild it." He felt her touch his brow, cold and burning all at once. Visions flooded his mind. Bran shaping the first stones, Eric's sacrifice upon the wall top, Cregan's fire awakening the ice. He saw Ronan Stark walking into the light, his form dissolving into flame. And he saw himself, standing where they had stood, the last echo of a promise made 8,000 years ago. "The wall must rise again," the woman said, "but this time it will not be made of ice alone." The steam thickened. The ground groaned. The fissure widened until it swallowed half the plain. Edric turned to his men, his voice fierce and steady. "Ride south. Tell them winter comes anew. Tell them the wall shall return." They begged him to follow, but he only smiled. "My blood remembers." As they fled, he stepped to the fissure's edge. The light blazed upward, enveloping him in gold and red. His body vanished, but his voice carried on the wind. "Stone and flame, ice and heart, let the wall rise." The light burst outward, spreading across the plain like dawn. When it dimmed, where once there had been glass and shadow, there now stood a wall reborn, half ice, half burning crystal, towering higher than before. Its surface shimmered, alive with shifting colors. The watchers miles away fell to their knees, weeping, and deep within its heart, the voice of Edric Stark joined the chorus of those before him, whispering through the centuries, "So long as the blood endures, so shall the wall. So long as the wall endures, so shall the world." The new wall gleamed beneath the rising sun, vast and terrible and beautiful. And somewhere beneath it, in the dark where light and cold met, something stirred and smiled, patient as time itself. Seasons turned again, though slower than before. The winters came heavier and summers shorter, as though the world itself had grown cautious of warmth. The new wall, Edric's wall men called it, rose like a mountain of living glass, its surface gleaming with both frost and fire. At sunrise it burned crimson, at dusk it shimmered blue, and by night it glowed faintly with veins of light that pulsed like the breath of a sleeping giant. No one approached it willingly. Those who did seldom returned. Travelers told tales of whispers echoing through its depths, of faces flickering in the crystal ice, and of shadows that moved behind the glow. The Maesters called it superstition. The Septons called it the work of demons. But the small folk of the north named it the Wall of Souls, and they built no homes within sight of it. Yet still it watched over them. The storms that had ravaged the realm eased, the crops grew again, and spring dared return for a brief while. It seemed the new wall held true, though no man could say what force sustained it. 2 centuries passed. The realm forgot once more. The Starks endured, as they always had, though their blood had thinned and their knowledge faded into legend. The Night's Watch was no more, its oaths long abandoned, its castles swallowed by snow. Only one place remained that still remembered, the frozen town of Whitehaven, built upon the edge of the silent plain. There, the old songs were still sung beside the hearths, and the people still left offerings at the northern gate. Candles, iron, and bits of glass to appease the spirits within the wall. It was there that a girl was born beneath the light of a red moon, the daughter of a poor fisherman and his wife. Her name was Lyanna Pike, though some whispered she bore another name in secret, one older and more dangerous. From the moment she could walk, the wall called to her. She would wander to its shadow and place her hands upon its glassy surface, whispering to it as if to a friend. Her mother would drag her away, scolding her for risking the wall's wrath, but Lyanna only smiled. "It's not angry," she would say. "It's lonely." And indeed, the wall responded to her touch. Where her small fingers met the ice, faint warmth spread and light stirred within, flickering like the first hint of dawn. By the time she was 16, Lyanna had become a strange legend among her people. The elders said she carried the blood of the old builders, though none could prove it. Some feared her, others revered her. And when she dreamed, oh, how she dreamed, she saw the past as if she had lived it. Bran carving the first stones, Arik giving his life to the storm, Cregan setting fire to the wall, Edric vanishing into the light. Always, at the end of the dream, she heard the same voice whispering through the fire and frost, "You will be the last." The year she turned 17, the sky began to burn again. A red aurora spread across the heavens, brighter than fire, pulsing as if alive. The people of Whitehaven fled their homes in terror, crying that the end had come. The old wall began to sing, a deep, resonant hum that shook the ground and made the air shimmer. Lyanna alone was unafraid. She stood before the wall, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes reflecting the glow. "It's waking," she whispered. "Something calls it from below." Behind her, the town priest knelt in the snow. "Child, come away. The gods are angry." But Lyanna shook her head. "No, the wall isn't our enemy. It's warning us." The priest crossed himself and fled. Lyanna stayed. The hum deepened. Cracks ran through the glass, spilling white fire. The fissures widened until the ground split open. From the depths came a wave of heat so fierce that the snow turned to steam. Then, out of the light, a voice rang clear. A voice neither man's nor woman's, vast as the world. "Blood of the builders, the balance fails again." Lyanna fell to her knees. "What do you mean?" "The wall holds both life and death. But life has grown stronger, and death grows restless. The fire burns without end, and the cold cannot contain it." The wall's light flickered like a dying flame. For the first time in centuries, shadows moved across its surface. If the wall falls again, the world will not mend. Ice and fire will become one, and all will burn or freeze together. You must choose. Lyanna rose slowly, her face pale in the firelight. "What can I do?" "You must restore what was lost, the heart of the wall. Only a soul born of both fire and ice may bear it. Your blood carries both." Her breath caught. "How can I carry a wall?" The voice grew softer, almost kind. "Not the wall, child, the power within it, the light that once was men." The surface of the wall shimmered. Faces appeared within it. Bran, Arik, Cregan, Edric, each carved in flame and frost. Their eyes met hers. Bran spoke first. "The world must endure." Arik followed. "But endurance demands strength." Cregan's voice rumbled like stone. "Strength without mercy brings ruin." Edric's tone was sorrowful. "And mercy without fire brings death." Lyanna looked from one to the next, her heart hammering. "Then which of you is right?" They spoke together. "All of us. and none. The choice is yours." The fissures widened. The wall trembled, shedding shards of glass that burned where they fell. Lyanna understood then. The wall's power could no longer hold itself apart. It was consuming its own heart, and if it fell, it would take the world with it. She pressed her hands to the ice. "If I take your power, what becomes of me?" "You will become the wall," said Bran, "and the wall will become you." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Then so be it." She drew a deep breath and stepped forward. The light enveloped her, searing and cold all at once. The figures within the wall reached out, their hands of fire and frost merging with her own. The song grew louder, rising from a hum to a cry that split the sky. Then came silence. When the light faded, the wall was whole again. The fissures had sealed, and its surface shone with pure white brilliance. The red aurora dimmed, the storms ceased, and the air grew calm. But Lyanna Pike was gone. The people searched for days, finding only a single footprint burned into the glass at the wall's base. Yet when they pressed their ears to the ice, they swore they heard a heartbeat. And sometimes, on nights when the aurora dances across the sky, her voice can be heard singing softly within the wall's glow, a song of fire and frost, of sorrow and hope. Those who hear it say the world grows warmer for a moment and the stars shine brighter, and they whisper that the wall has never been so beautiful. For within its depths, the last of the builders still stands, neither woman nor stone, neither ice nor flame, but something new and eternal, holding back the darkness with the strength of all who came before her. And far to the north, beyond even the reach of her light, the ancient cold waits in silence, patient as ever. 1,000 years passed, and the songs of Lyanna Pike faded into legend. The people of the north spoke of her as they once had of Bran the Builder and Arik Snow, a name half remembered, a tale for long winter nights beside the hearth. The wall she had become still towered in the far north, gleaming with a light that never dimmed, neither holy flame nor ice. It shone with a soft, living glow, like moonlight caught in crystal. Men no longer feared the long night. The kingdoms of Westeros turned inward once more, forgetting the old terrors beyond their borders. Kings fought kings, blood spilled into rivers, and maesters filled their books with accounts of human folly, while the true story of the world slept behind its barrier of light. But the wall remembered. Deep within its heart, where Lyanna's soul had been bound, dreams stirred, dreams of the builders before her, of the long chain of sacrifice that had kept the darkness at bay. In that still place, the souls of Bran, Arik, Cregan, Edric, and Lyanna wove together into a single consciousness, vast and eternal. They were not dead, but neither were they alive. They were the wall, its thought, its will, its endless watch, and beyond them, something else waited in the frozen dark, a presence older than time, patient as stone. The wall could feel it pressing against its far side, slow and inevitable, like the tide against the shore. The ancient cold had not been destroyed, only quieted. It was stirring again. In those days, the North was ruled by Lord Theon Stark, last of his line, a man of peace in an age that had forgotten war. He was no warrior, but a scholar, more often found among his books than in the training yard. Yet he kept one custom older than all others. Every year, on the longest night, he would ride north to the wall to stand before it and lay his hand upon the shining surface. It was said the wall spoke to those who bore the blood of the builders. Most heard only the wind, but Theon heard more. On the 20th year of his rule, as the first snows of a new winter fell, Theon made his yearly pilgrimage. He rode alone, wrapped in gray furs, with only a single torch to guide him through the deepening dark. The aurora shimmered above like ribbons of red and silver fire. When he reached the wall, he dismounted and stood in silence. Its height stole the breath from him. The light within seemed gentler than he remembered, pulsing in slow rhythm like a slumbering heart. He reached out, pressed his gloved hand to the surface, and whispered the ancient words of his house. "Winter is coming." At first, there was no response. Then the ice warmed beneath his palm, and a whisper filled his mind, soft, sorrowful, unmistakably human. "Winter is always coming, child of my blood." He fell to his knees, trembling. Who speaks? We all do. The builders, the watchers, the wall itself. The wall speaks. The wall remembers, and the wall dreams. The light brightened, flowing upward like veins of fire. Within it, faint silhouettes appeared. Faces half-formed, eyes glowing like embers through frost. "Our time grows short," they said together. "The balance fails again. The world below has forgotten. The darkness beyond remembers." Theon's heart hammered. "Then tell me what I must do." "You must waken the world." "Awaken it to what?" "To truth." The light flared, and images poured into his mind. Endless fields of frozen glass, the builders giving their lives to bind the cold, the first rising of the wall, its shattering and rebirth, Lyanna's sacrifice, and the face of the thing that slept beyond, vast and formless, its eyes black voids rimmed with fire. When the vision faded, Theon was weeping. "I am no hero," he whispered. "I am only a man." "So were we," the voices replied, "and yet we built eternity." The light dimmed once more. Theon fell to the snow, exhausted. When he awoke, the aurora had faded and dawn was breaking. The wall was silent again, its glow faint and cool. He returned to Winterfell, changed. He called his banners, gathered his scholars, and reopened the libraries long sealed by frost. He sent ravens to the citadel, to the Vale, to every corner of the realm. He begged them to remember, to study the age of the builders, to record what had been lost. Most ignored him, but whispers spread nonetheless. Some said Lord Theon had gone mad in the cold, others that the wall had cursed him with prophecy. Yet in the north, stories have power, and by spring, old songs stirred again. Children of the wild woods spoke of figures walking atop the wall at night. 1 woman and 4 men, their forms of light, their voices woven like wind through the trees. When they sang, the snows melted, and flowers grew briefly even in the frost. The maesters wrote this down, for even the citadel could not ignore what eyes had seen. They began again to speak of the wall not as a barrier, but as a living thing, a relic of power older than dragons or kings. Still, the wall's light dimmed with each passing year. One bitter night, when Theon was old and his hair white as the snows, he rode once more to the wall. This time, he did not go to pray or listen. He went to say farewell. He knelt before the shining expanse and pressed his palm against it. "I have done all I could," he murmured. "The world will not hear. They have forgotten again." The ice shivered beneath his hand, and Lyanna's voice rose faintly, carried on the wind. "Then you shall remind them one last time." The ground trembled. Cracks of light spread beneath his knees, radiating outward in golden lines. Theon looked up as the wall's entire face began to glow, not red, not blue, but pure white. "One must watch forever," said the voice. "The rest must sleep." He understood then. He smiled faintly and whispered, "So be it." The wall's light enveloped him, For an instant, his body shone like molten glass, then vanished entirely. The glow receded, and once again, the wall was calm, its surface smooth as still water. But those who came north in the years that followed swore that a new figure now stood among the lights within the wall, a man's shape beside the woman of flame, his eyes open, watching the realm of men. Thus the wall endured for another age. Kingdoms rose and fell, dragons came and went, and the Maester's chronicles turned to dust. Yet still, the northern light burned on the horizon, a reminder that sacrifice had once saved the world. And though men no longer knew the builders' names, every child in the north learned a simple verse whispered by their elders when the first snow fell. 5 souls keep the wall of light through endless day and endless night. If ever their song should cease to call, the dark will rise and cover all. So it was sung, year after year, while the wall watched and waited. Its heart still pulsed faintly, a rhythm of life bound in ice and fire. And far beyond, in the silent north where no man walked, the old darkness lay dreaming still, listening for the moment when the song would falter, when the last flame would flicker, and the cold would rise once more to claim the world.